So is that action the Indian government has taken today warranted, justified? Earlier, I spoke with the Minister of State for Human Resource Development, Shashi Tharoor, also himself formerly the UN Under-Secretary General, and really began by asking him if those measures were in fact justified, according to him.
Well, yes, I think that it's very clear that reciprocity is one of the cardinal principles of diplomatic relations. And if our consular officials are treated in a certain way, it's entirely appropriate that comparable treatment should be issued to other countries' consular officials, because precisely it's a two-way traffic. We really value our relationship with the United States. We believe it's in the interest of both countries to have good relations. But at the same time, we can't value this relationship more than the US values its relationship with us. And I think that that's why reciprocity is so common in diplomatic conduct, and that's something I think that the government has appropriately done.
You're saying it's appropriate and reciprocity is necessary. Even so, would you agree that the withdrawal of security was warranted? Many have pointed out that does seem harsh and excessive.
No, there's no question of withdrawing security. The pickets that maintain security remain. We have simply declined to cooperate with the unilateral placing of bollards outside the embassy, which was obstructing the free flow of traffic, and which was an extra courtesy that went beyond the normal relationship. And I think that now that extra courtesies apparently are not on offer from the other side, very clearly a similar signal is being sent. But I think that you should understand that we would never want to compromise the security of a foreign mission on our soil, particularly the US, which faces various kinds of security threats, and our security measures will remain in place, as indeed I'm sure will theirs. It's simply the bollards that were obstructing traffic, the one thing that has been moved, that's all.
How can you say that, Shashi Tharoor? In fact, we're looking at those pictures. How can you say security hasn't removed? The police has removed the barricades that have been there since 2001. We're seeing them being taken away. The US Embassy parking has now been turned into public parking. It almost sounds like the actions have been taken with a very, very deep sense of pique with the US.
Well, considering the way in which our diplomat has been treated in New York, I think that there is a measured, calibrated response coming from the Indian government side. For example, some senior Indian officials refused to meet a congressional delegation, but our foreign minister did meet them and did say to them very clearly how unhappy we were about the way in which our diplomat was treated. You know, some of these things, frankly, Suhasini, the signals are understood without it necessarily being a big to-do in the media. Unfortunately, in this particular instance, somebody serving her nation in their country was not treated properly, and I think it's entirely appropriate that some sort of response should follow.
And as a result, of course, the charges against Devyani Khobragade are of a different nature from her duties, but would you say her treatment is in fact an insult to the nation?
Well, look, very clearly the reason that diplomats have certain protections and certain immunities is because they are in a foreign country to serve their nation. They're not there as aspiring immigrants. They're not there to avail of the services of the US state. They're there very much to serve India. And therefore we expect certain courtesies to be extended to them, just as we have extended a lot of courtesies to American diplomats in India. Believe me, we have been really far, far more liberal and generous than is commonly understood when it comes to the way in which we have made various exceptions and gone beyond requirements to make certain foreign diplomats feel at home in our country and feel that they have all the facilities they need to do their job perfectly well. Now, we think that this is something that is normal in diplomatic relationships. One wants to see a certain courtesy being extended in a manner that says, look, we value this relationship. Unfortunately, what was done to Devyani did not suggest that kind of courtesy, and so there is a certain reaction.
Shashi Tharoor, you've been an international diplomat of sorts, a UN official there in New York. This is not the first such case. In fact, Devyani Khobragade's case is the third such case of a dispute between an Indian diplomat and their domestic staff in 3 years. The question, should the MEA have tackled this specific problem earlier? Because the impression that is being created internationally is that Indian diplomats in particular mistreat their domestic staff.
Believe me, Suhasini, there must be 1,000 diplomats in New York from 100 developing countries whose own salaries are lower than what the US decrees should be the minimum wage for a domestic maid, and they're all paying their domestic staff lower. For some reason, our country seems to have been singularly favored for this kind of investigation and treatment, but the fact is we really need to negotiate a different arrangement under which the domestic staff of diplomats who are there to assist the diplomats to perform their representational functions must be given a different kind of status from some aspiring worker in the American job market. These are not people in the American job market. They're very often people who are family retainers of the diplomats, who worked with them in a number of different countries and who have gone with them because they know the family, they know the culture, they know the cuisine that they have to cook and serve and so on. And that's why they're there. So it's absurd of the US to apply their laws in this manner, and it's unfortunate that we have not been able to negotiate with them an agreement that treats these people in a different way. That they should be treated as if they're part of the diplomatic staff of the mission, like peons and chauffeurs and domestic help of diplomats who are there for diplomatic purposes. And that, I think, ought to be treated very differently. At the moment, it's not.
You are accusing the US of double standards, but I'd like to ask you tonight, after all these measures have been taken, is the government worried about retaliatory measures from the US that would target Indian diplomats there?
No, we wouldn't want it to get out of control for the simple reason that it didn't start with us, as you've seen. It started with a particularly ungracious handling of an individual matter. Apart from the fact that we have to ask why we are singled out and why our national, when there are very easily dozens, if not hundreds of other cases where everyone is in comparable position there, because many developing countries have this tradition of domestic help and their staffs are clearly not getting American wages. But anyway, be that as it may, we don't want this to escalate beyond a point. Something has been done to us. There has been a certain response. We want to keep the channels of communication open. I know that our foreign secretary is in daily dialogue with the American ambassador, that our foreign minister has spoken to the most senior American to visit recently, the head of the congressional delegation who happens to head the Judiciary Committee. Messages and signals have gone very clearly. And I think on the other side, there must be some desire to diffuse this, which after all is a problem we didn't create.